As a New Jersey union boss and a member of the Genovese Crime Family, Anthony Provenzano, or Tony Pro, was infamous on both sides. Provenzano was well known for his ties to Jimmy Hoffa because of his position as president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Local 560 in Union City, New Jersey. Stay tuned for more on Anthony Provenzano's influence in the Genovese crime families. Anthony Provenzano. As a leader in the Genovese crime family, Anthony Provenzano was a major star, respected and feared member of the crew and top earner in the gang. The authorities knew of Provenzano because of his notoriety for harshness and ruthlessness, which also afforded him enormous influence. Despite his frequent use of the title captain in the press, it is unlikely that he was ever a high-ranking officer than just a soldier. We've established how much of a crime lord Provenzano was. You get amazed by his capabilities and influence in the conspiracy with Jimmy Hoffa. We talk more about this conspiracy later on in the video. In addition to racketeering and labor unions, he also engaged in extortion, fraud, shylocking, strong-arm enforcer, murder, gambling, vehicle hijacking, and counterfeiting. He was well known in the criminal underworld of New Jersey. The criminal underworld of New Jersey. The five families are the undisputed leaders of New Jersey's criminal underworld. Although all five families have a reputation for greed, the Genovese crime family has earned the reputation for bloodthirstiness, which only increased under Anthony Provenzano's reign. Along the way, he encountered the anger and resentment of racket busters and the adoration of union men, as well as violent election campaigns, federal and state investigations, the mysterious disappearances and deaths of union opponents, and incomes that exceeded corporate bounty.
I think they're criminal.
A nonprofit that keeps tabs on the nation's crime clearance rate has shown that roughly 34% of homicides in the United States were unsolved in 2019. Similar percentages, about 31% as of the last count, appear to be true in New Jersey. And the bulk of that 31% can be traced back to those same five families in New Jersey. Having established how Provenzano was vital to the Genovese crime families, let's cast our minds back to his upbringing and how he lived in his early days. This comes up shortly, so keep watching. Jimmy Hoffa's conspiracy. James R. Hoffa, president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, was a friend he made in Detroit. Due to Provenzano's sway and influence as a leader in the Genovese crime family, Hoffa was able to remain president and was never defeated in an election. While you're here, kindly consider subscribing, and let's bust some secrets together. This was a huge win for the mob and their allies, who had been manipulating Hoffa behind the scenes. This was a team effort amongst several distinct mafia clans. The assassination of Hoffa was unquestionably plotted and carried out by Tony Pro. The myth is so popular, though, that it has a tendency to expand in all directions. Some interested people saw an opening to advance their agendas by circulating skewed reports. And then there were the bystanders, who joined in despite knowing nothing about the situation.
So inquisitive.
Sal Brigaglio, an operative of Local 560, has been suspected of shooting Hoffa in the Jimmy Hoffa's conspiracy. Hoffa's lifelong buddy and driver, Frank Sheeran, is accused of being behind it all in Charles Brandt's I Hear You Paint Houses, from which the film The Irishman was made. But some claim the Irishman truth of the story was not what actually happened. One theory claims Hoffa was buried on property owned by a mafia, rather than where he was last seen alive in Michigan. Others allege that Tony Pro had Hoffa's body delivered to New Jersey in a gallon bucket, so that he could see it and believe it. Then, Hoffa's body was either buried beneath the current Meadowlands Sports Complex, in a Jersey City landfill, or on a plot in Garfield or tossed in the ocean, depending on who you ask.
Well, don't sound too surprised.
Following Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance in 1975, mobster Anthony, Tony Giacalone, and Detroit capo Tony Provenzano were considered prime suspects in his death. However, they still don't know who killed Jimmy Hoffa. A lunch appointment scheduled for Hoffa with the two Tonys on the afternoon he disappeared was the focus of numerous reports and investigations. Even after one of the most extensive searches in U.S. history, the FBI was unable to find Hoffa or discover who killed Jimmy Hoffa. That hardly happens, looking at the fact that it's the FBI of the U.S. federal agents went to great lengths to convert Tony Pro into a cooperating witness or punish those accused in Hoffa's death. Anthony Provenzano's early career. When the Great Depression hit, Tony Pro was working as a truck driver and decided to join the Teamsters union, where he quickly climbed to prominence by a combination of force and cunning. To clarify, Anthony Provenzano allowed his family to run Teamsters Local 560 like their own mini empire. Over the years, Anthony Provenzano and his devoted followers have fully corrupted several significant local chapters of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters because of his influence. To be more explicit, the Provenzano family managed Teamsters Local number 560 like it was their own little empire, thanks to Anthony Provenzano. In the past, Tony worked at the union as an organizer, business agents, vice presidents, and secretary/treasurer before he was expelled and banned from occupying any position due to a federal labor rackets conviction. Nonetheless, he ensured that in his absence, his daughter, his brothers, and their offspring were all engaged by the locals as labor officials or as the officer manager by using his influences as a leader in the Genovese Crime Family, a shadowy group of accomplices who were experts in utilizing hammers on other men, selling labor peace to the trucking industry, using firearms, and cleverly disposing of rivals through the use of waste crushers and incinerators, were blamed for both his rise and fall. As Anthony Provenzano came to popularity in the labor movements, he faced opposition from many people. He had his men physically abuse his opponents until they submitted, or in one case, disappeared until he acquired control of all Teamster operations in the northern New Jersey area. Local number 560, with its headquarters in Union City and membership of 13,000, was not only the largest truckers local in the New York metropolitan area, but also the most prominent trucking local in New Jersey. An authentic muscle car indeed, and the person or people in charge of it wielded enormous power. With his ascent to the Teamsters Joint Council of New Jersey presidents, he eventually had absolute power over all Teamsters operations in the Northeast. This gets us to the story of the head of the Genovese family, Anthony Provenzano, and the alleged murder of Anthony Castellito, as well as the realization that Secret Buzzer will almost likely cover any significant occurrence. Now that's out of the way, here's a link to that video. Did Genovese boss Anthony Provenzano murder Anthony Castellito? We perform an in-depth investigation of his formidable capo within the Genovese Crime Family's New Jersey section. Thank you for watching this video. We'll see you later.